It was New York City, 2019. The evening air buzzed inside one of Manhattan's most prestigious five-star hotels. Wealthy investors, sharp-dressed CEOs, and top lawyers were gathered for a private dinner that could seal a $200 million deal. At the center sat Richard Wallace, a millionaire CEO known for his arrogance as much as his empire. His gold watch glistened as he kept glancing at the clock, tapping his fingers loudly. "Why is the service so slow?" he muttered, irritation dripping from his voice. The deal of his life was about to unfold, but Richard's impatience was about to ruin everything. Finally, the heavy wooden doors to the dining hall opened, and a young waitress named Danielle stepped in. She couldn't have been more than 23, dressed neatly in a crisp black uniform with her curls tied back in a bun. Despite the pressure of serving some of the wealthiest men in America, she carried herself with a quiet dignity. In her hands was a silver tray balancing sparkling glasses of water and wine. Richard spotted her immediately. He leaned back in his chair with exaggerated impatience, drumming his fingers on the table. His lips curled into a smirk as if the entire evening had been inconvenienced by this one waitress. "Finally," he snapped, his voice cutting through the elegant chatter. "Took you long enough. Do you people always move this slow?" The air in the room shifted. Conversations halted. Forks froze mid-air. Everyone's eyes flicked to Danielle. She steadied the tray in her hands, her smile trembling just enough to reveal her nerves. I'm sorry for the delay, sir. There's been a lot of orders tonight." Her tone was soft, polite, and apologetic. But Richard wasn't satisfied. He wanted to humiliate her. He raised his voice louder than before, making sure everyone heard. "Unbelievable. This is exactly the problem. Incompetence everywhere. A stupid girl can't even bring water on time." The word stupid struck Danielle like a slap. Her chest tightened, her eyes blinking rapidly as she tried to keep her composure. She gently placed the glasses on the table, her hands trembling, then quickly stepped back. She said nothing. No defense. No argument. Just silence. But her silence spoke volumes, about dignity, pain, and the quiet strength of someone forced to endure disrespect. And at that moment, while Richard smirked smugly, someone else at the table was watching, very closely. Across the table, Jonathan Reed sat silently, his fork resting untouched on the edge of his plate. Unlike Richard, Jonathan wasn't fidgeting or impatient. His eyes were calm, focused, but piercing, like someone who noticed every detail others missed. And right now, all his attention was fixed on Richard's cruel words. Jonathan leaned forward slowly, placing his elbows on the polished mahogany table. His voice came low, steady, but laced with steel. "Richard, what did you just say to her?" The question sliced through the silence. Heads turned. The other investors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether to intervene or stay quiet. Richard chuckled, trying to brush it off with arrogance. He waved his hand dismissively as if Jonathan were overreacting. "Oh, come on, Jonathan. Don't tell me you're taking her side. She's just a waitress. These people mess up all the time. I don't have patience for stupidity." The words "these people" hung in the air like poison. Jonathan's jaw tightened. He straightened his back, his eyes narrowing, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. At that exact moment, Danielle returned, quietly placing fresh plates in front of the men. Her movements were careful, almost invisible, as if she wanted to melt into the background and avoid more humiliation. But Jonathan didn't let her fade away. He looked directly at her, his tone softening. "You're doing just fine, miss." "Thank you," he said with genuine warmth. Danielle blinked in surprise, a small, grateful smile flickering across her face before she hurried away. Then Jonathan turned back to Richard, his expression hard as stone. His words came out slow, deliberate, and unshakable. "You know what's really stupid, Richard? Investing $200 million in a man who can't even respect another human being." The room froze. Richard's smirk slipped for the first time. The room went dead silent. Every investor, lawyer, and executive seated around the table froze as Jonathan's words hung heavy in the air. Richard's smirk faded into something else, confusion, then disbelief. He leaned forward, trying to laugh, though his voice cracked slightly. "Jonathan, you can't be serious. You'd walk away from a deal this big, over a waitress. Jonathan didn't flinch. He picked up his napkin, folded it carefully, and set it on the table as if sealing his decision with finality. Then he stood, adjusting his jacket with calm precision. "If this is how you treat people who can't fight back," he said firmly, his voice carrying across the room, "then I don't want your name tied to mine. The deal is off." The words struck like thunder. Gasps echoed around the table. A glass clinked as someone's hand shook. Several investors exchanged glances, their faces pale with discomfort. Richard scrambled. He pushed back his chair, the legs screeching against the polished floor. "Wait. Jonathan, listen. Please, don't do this. It was just a joke. She doesn't matter." His words only made it worse. The phrase "she doesn't matter" hit the table like venom. Jonathan's eyes darkened. He stepped closer, lowering his voice but sharpening every syllable. "She matters more than you'll ever understand. And tonight, she showed me exactly who you are." Richard's face turned red, his forehead glistening with sweat. He looked around desperately for support, but the other investors avoided his gaze. Some were already sliding their chairs back, gathering their belongings. Jonathan gave Richard one last cold glance before turning his back. Without hesitation, he walked out of the room, his footsteps echoing like a final verdict. And just like that, $200 million disappeared into thin air. The grand dining hall, which just minutes earlier buzzed with ambition and wealth, now echoed with whispers and unease. Richard Wallace stood frozen at the head of the table, his face pale, his posture crumbling. The once confident CEO who had strutted in expecting to close the deal of his life now looked like a man stripped bare in front of everyone. One by one, investors pushed back their chairs, their polished shoes clicking against the marble floor as they rose. Some shook their heads, others whispered to each other, but none offered Richard a lifeline. The shame clung to him heavier than his tailored suit. His empire had just taken a fatal blow, not because of a bad business move, but because of his own arrogance. Near the kitchen doors, Danielle watched quietly. She had kept her composure through Richard's insults, swallowing the sting of his words, but she hadn't expected anyone, let alone a billionaire investor, to defend her. For the first time that evening, her heart felt a little lighter. She wasn't invisible. She mattered. As Jonathan Reed passed by on his way out, he paused. He turned to Danielle with a kind, steady smile, so different from Richard's sneer. "Don't ever let anyone tell you you're less than what you are," Jonathan said gently. "Respect costs nothing, but it's worth everything." Her eyes welled with tears. She nodded, whispering, "Thank you, sir." Jonathan gave her one last reassuring look before walking away, his figure disappearing into the night.